Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we decode the art and science of building a thriving coaching business. Let's see what's in store today with none other than the legend himself, Karl Bryan, and of course, yours truly, the Road Dog. Shoots, welcome.
Yo, Road Dog. How you doing, my brother? Ready to rock?
You know what? I'm doing all right, bud. I'm doing all right. Just one of those days where sometimes you start something, you gotta just reset. Hey, just one of those days.
There you go.
But that's okay.
Recent pause. What do they say? You got to pause. Don't quit. I think that's the word. Tim Ferriss. But there you go. I used to have that in my my office in Kelowna. I had that. Probably still have it there, by the way, on a Post-it note on the screen of my computer. Pause. ... Don't quit. So there you go.
Love that. That's beautiful. Hey, listen, last week, so for those of you that missed the last episode, or for those of you in the cheap seats in the back that didn't hear me the first time, what we did last week was I did this sort of word association. So I kind of went through a lot of the old sort of questions and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, what are some of the key words that really sort of struck, right? That were kind of impactful, if you will. And I got, I don't know what, maybe 10% down the list last week. So if you're good with it, I'd love to continue word association.
Shoots. Word association. Sounds a bit like Jeopardy, man. There you go.
I was going to say, we need some theme music for it, right? Like ding, ding, ding. You know, so something.
Shoots. Use that in the future. They do that again.
No. All right. Yeah. Hey, to the production crew, get us some sound effects, would you? Jeez, come on now. All right. With that in mind, let's jump right into it. And wow, kind of interesting that worked out. I talked about restarts, and you said pause. How about this? Can you talk to me about unforced errors?
Ooh, I like that one. Unforced errors in business. I say ooh because I watched a football game last night where, without doubt, unforced errors, specifically being one receiver that will remain unnamed because the poor guy's getting torn apart, dropped a pass at the very end of the game, which I was going to say my 11-year-old could have caught that, but you know what? I'm not going to say that because then I'm being like everybody else and piling on the poor bugger. But anyway, so he dropped a 2-point conversion at the very end of the game that was, that anybody could have caught. And he literally fell into the end zone. The problem is he fell into the end zone without the ball. And that was game over. Anywho, so what I would say, winners win championships and losers lose championships would be the frame of that. Like you watch a tennis match, and the player with the least unforced errors, generally speaking, of course, right? Again, this is, these are principles. These are not, there are anomalies to this, of course, more than anomalies. But the guy hits the most errors, loses the match. And one thing like Roger Federer, who may not be the greatest of all time, but he was certainly referred to that as that for a period of time until Novak came along, who might be dethroning him. I'll let you decide that. But at the end of the day, what was Federer famous for? It was getting the ball. He wasn't the hardest hitter, certainly wasn't the hardest server. What he was really, really good at was keeping that ball in play. And apparently it worked out pretty well for him. Like the Super Bowl, you go have a look over the last 10 Super Bowl winners, look at the stats of the game, and the team with the least turnovers won the game, right? So, and how do you lose a championship? How do you lose a game in playoffs? How do you lose the game to get you into the playoffs? How do you lose the game, in the conference championships, etc.? Turnovers, dumb penalties, specifically dumb penalties at important times, which is more sacrilege, mental mistakes, and drop passes, right? And the stats clearly show that. My dad, he's a big football guy and, bet for a long, long time. And he said there's something to this effect, paraphrasing old Skinny, but there's 100 reasons to fumble the football, but not one of them is acceptable. Right. So idea is hold on to that damn thing. Why? Because again, that is how you lose the game as opposed to win the game. Hold on to the sucker. And by the way, let's translate that. Business owners, they mess this up with their ideal clients, right? So again, it's 80-20, 80%, 20% of their clients bring in 80% of the revenue, right? Well, what do? Well, the 20% that really matter, like a specific time in a football game, and a specific time in a tennis match, they make an error. And how do they do that with the 20% ideal clients that bring in 80% of the revenue and provide 80% of, the retention of the future? A lack of support and follow through, and I'll say lack of follow-up, right? Like what do? They give all their time and attention to the 80% squeaky wheel clients, right? Squeaky wheel gets the oil. That is not a good business strategy in any way, shape, or form. And notwithstanding, they've never done an audit of their clients to isolate the 20% that spend the 80%. They've never actually done that. And again, that when, according to Roger Federer and the way that he plays tennis, and the other greats of sports, they would say that's an example of you know what I mean? That's an unforced error. That's a mistake. And even, like Western society, you see this time and time again. Millionaires are leaving the UK, Canada, the US also in droves. And remember, 1% pay 50% of the taxes, right? Or think about California and how many people they have lost to states like Texas. And it is there's one reason they're not going for the weather. What they're going for is a little thing called tax. The number one, that we talked about this last week, the number one expense in your life, my life, Road Dog's life, and everybody adult's life is taxes. And that's why people are picking up and leaving California, amongst some other things. By the way, this might be just talking about Federer here. I don't know the exact stats on this, but Federer won, if you look at the statistics over the course of his career, and again, while he was becoming the greatest of all time, he won I don't know what the stats are, but he won 55% of his points. And that's not spot on, but I'm pretty close. But he won 80% of his matches. And then why, how does that come about? And I would just use one word: timing, right? It's like in investing. Success, what Warren Buffett says about investing is that success over all else is dictated by when you start. Right? I started my business career at the ripe old age of about 12, right? Again, I, messed things up royally, continue to, frankly. But what happened, because I got started so early, it set me up so that I had a whole, I had so much. Somebody else was starting a business at the age of 40, and I already had a few decades of experience. No doubt you could see how that would be a competitive advantage, right? And the world is, if Warren Buffett was going to invest in a company, the first thing he looks for is a competitive advantage. He looks for a moat. Right. One of the first things that he looks at. Anyway, so another unforced error would be the entrepreneur, notwithstanding the family man or the family woman, buying the $100,000 car, paying exorbitant amounts of interest on that. And remember, the $100,000 car, it's not just the price point. It is servicing the car. It is insuring the car. It's the dent on the car. How much that costs. They got different size wheels on the front and different size wheels on the back. I had a car, I took it in, I had to get actually you were with me, Road Dog, by the way. But I had to get the clutch done and a couple other things. I mean, the bill, I don't know, it was $30,000, right? So buying the $100,000 car to impress your neighbors, not necessarily a good idea. And they don't realize, again, it's not just $100,000. It's so much more. Notwithstanding, we could parlay that into home ownership, right? When you buy a house, the minimum amount you'll pay is your mortgage. And when you rent a house, the maximum you pay is the rent, right? So everybody, and by the way, should you buy your own house? Should you not buy your own house? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'd have to understand little red arrow, you are here, and then where you wanted to get to in order to provide you that answer. But I can tell you there's some very smart people, significantly smarter than me, that would tell you that, investing in the stock market over the long haul would give you get you dramatically closer to your goals quicker. And by virtue of one word, and that's expenses, right? While saying that about the $100,000 car, I should say, careful you don't confuse what's impressive with what's important, right? And if you haven't taken the time to dial in, your client hasn't taken the time to dial in on what's important, they don't know. And this is where the mistake of spending significantly more than rational, you know what I mean? And and keep in mind, the goal is to get you to your goal, which I would imagine would be wealth, would be freedom, in a retirement that you could enjoy. Well, that $100,000 car could put a serious dent on that. And don't confuse being busy with being successful. Falls into that same family. But anywho, unforced heirs, confusing being busy with being successful would fall into that. But that's my answer. Shoots. How'd I do?
Good. And now I'm kind of nervous on this next one. So, because this is rabbit hole central on this next one, Shoot. So if you wouldn't mind to keep a little short, that would be great. Because
that's the frame of word association, right? I got to.
This is it. Like, because I know that when I say what I'm about to say, I'm not even joking, folks. He could probably do a 1-day presentation on this, and that's just how it works. You've been in the industry for how long, Karl?
Since I was 30. That's a couple decades plus, bud.
30 years, eh? Okay, so with that in mind, with your 38 years of experience, why do most coaches fail?
Oh, you're right, Shoots. Look, number one, they're just half pregnant, right? They go month to month, quarter to quarter, and decide if they're going to keep going, right? It's just absolutely the wrong way to go about doing it. Actually, so when you join the program at focus.com, I did a video, and it's like the frame of, just giving you the right mindset. And simply put, I talked about Mel Fisher, which we talked about many a times on the podcast. This is a guy who found a $100 plus million dollar treasure off the Florida Keys. The problem is you hear that and you're like, oh my gosh, sign me up. That sounds amazing. It took him 17 years, right? And he lost he lost a kid, he lost a wife, he lost his fortune, he lost his sanity at different times. And I would just say, like most coaches, they don't see far enough. They don't see 17 days ahead, let alone 17 months or 17 years, right? And by the way, how did Mel Fisher do it, and what's the frame? He went all in. Why did he go all in? Because he had 3 core beliefs, and he had 3 core questions that he answered. Number 1, is it there? It's not there. Why keep going? Number 1, is it there? Number 2, am I the one that's going to be able to find it? Number 2, can I find it? And then number 3, and really importantly, and most importantly, will it be worth it? Because we know he knew that there was going to be trials, tribulations, and some hell to pay, but he was damned and determined and just wasn't going to give up, to the tune of, not giving up for 17 years. I'd parlay that to a business coach. And then how do I parlay that to a business coach? Just ask the same 3 questions, right? Number 1, are they there? Number 2, will you be the one that they choose to help them grow, right? Do you have a framework that you believe works? Translation, Jumpstart 12, by the way, and profit acceleration software. But I'll keep going. Will you be the one that they will choose to mentor them? And do you have a framework for success? And then number 3, verbatim to what Mel Fisher said, will it be worth it? Right? You've got to go all in. And then as you're going all in, again, that's rather arbitrary. It's like, okay, answer those 3 questions. Do you believe the business owners are out there and that they want to grow? Number 2, do you believe that they're going to choose you and they should choose you? And then number 3, there will be hell to pay and there will be trials and tribulations. This is, you become an entrepreneur. It is a very bumpy road. I don't care how smooth you heard about another that went through it. Being an entrepreneur can be a lonely place, a painful place, mental gymnastics on steroids. Will it be worth it? Will you give up at the first sign of trouble? Will you give up at that first speed bump? In fact, way more importantly than that, will you pause at the speed bump and ask the question, am I going to keep going? Will you continually ask yourself that question, or will you blow up the boats, go all in and say, this is what I was meant to be. This is in my soul. I am going to accomplish this come hell or high water, because all my dreams and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow live at the other side of, business coaching and a successful business coaching company. So I'm going to do it. Right. And so anyway, so the answer to those three questions, hopefully you write those down. I think that has power. Are they there? Are you going to be the one? And number three, is it going to be worth it? And then also, in fact, I used to run some training way back when. I mean, this is going back years, but it was like the 10 biggest mistakes that business coaches make using social media to grow their company. It was shorter than that, by the way, but that was the frame, right? What are the 10 biggest mistakes business coaches make when trying to use the internet, trying to use social media to promote their company? And number one, lock, stock, barrel, and without question, and I haven't done any homework on this in the last, number of years, but I guarantee I'm right. Actually, can't guarantee I'm right, but I would dare say I'm right. And I'm going to pretty it up. I'm not right. I'm damn close. And it's spending all their time with other business coaches online. Okay. So if you look at, you're a member of 10 different groups on LinkedIn and 10 different groups on Facebook, how many of those groups are with other business coaches? And then how many of those groups are small business owners? Right. And no doubt, you know the answer. Right? What should it be? You got to have at least 80% of your group, and not that you shouldn't have peers and learn from one another. That would be crazy not to do that. Trial and error. We've got a huge group with our community where folks are, posting all the time, commenting all the time, helping one another, asking questions, etc. But what you got to make sure that 80% of the groups that you're following are small business owners. So shoots, answer to that in a few words, just, you can't be half pregnant and expect to have the monster success that you probably wrote down as your goal. So that's my answer, Shoots.
Okay, the next one's a little bit different, but maybe not. I can see the tie-in. I remember you and I remember it clearly. It was a sunny day. I was coming back. I think we actually met at the pub down the street, and I remember it was just bouncing in my brain. One thing that you always like to talk about, North Star.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice. So just a guiding light. So Zuckerberg, so let me just give you an example. Zuckerberg, this is going back a while. But he said, so if you wanted to get a meeting with Zuckerberg and you were one of the, managers or employee, he would ask you this question. Does it help us grow? Okay. Because he wasn't on a mission for revenues. He wasn't on a mission for profit. He was absolutely on a mission to grow. Translation, market share. Right. So if you called a meeting with Zuckerberg, he would say, what's it about? And then he would look at it and he would say, will this help us grow? And if the answer to that was yes, you'd probably get a meeting. And if the answer to that was no, he put a line through it because he knew what his North Star was. Right. So by having an effective North Star, you can knock over a lot of dominoes and make things he can really help you with your guide as to what should you say yes to, what should you say no to, right? Or another good example is Gary Vaynerchuk, right? So his North Star does it get me attention, right? So he's interested in eyeballs and earlobes. The more eyeballs, the more earlobes, the better chance that he's going to show up. So let's say that Gary V has got 2 speaking opportunities on the 18th. One's got an audience of 180 people, and then the other room's got an audience of 1,800. Which one does he say yes to? Well, more eyeballs, more earlobes. He's going to the larger group, right? So again, it made it really, and by the way, Gary V has got a team underneath him, and then they knew which, because he gave them the framework, and then they knew which one to hit on, right? With that, I'm going to make a big claim is what's coming to mind, right? I don't know if this is like North Star stuff, but I think it rhymes. And it's like, what does Elon Musk say? He says he's going to colonize Mars, right? So he's the alien just trying to get home. When he made that statement, how much attention did it get him? Okay, and when you hear about somebody colonize, wanting to colonize Mars, or is talking about colonizing Mars, who do you automatically think of? And I would dare say that would be Elon Musk. So by making this broad monster claim, he got an unbelievable amount of attention, like building his personal brand, right? Like, and then Gary Vee, what does he say all the time? I'm going to buy the New York Jets, right? It's like a big, lofty statement. Zuckerberg, the goal of Facebook is to connect the world. I don't know if he said that, but Zuckerberg, he's going to connect the world, right? Like that was his overriding message for years. Bezos, like literally the autobiography, the book on Jeff Bezos is called The Everything Store, right? You go to his letters to shareholders and he laid it out on a silver platter for everybody to see. What do they want to sell at Amazon? He started with, books and CDs. Was that his goal? Was that his lofty claim? Is that his big statement? Absolutely not. His goal was to sell everything on Amazon, right? And then, Trump, love him, hate him, I'm going to build a wall. How much attention did that give him? By the way, he never built the wall, and nobody seems to, built a little bit of the wall. Nobody seems to talk about it. But anyway, so, but again, making these lofty claims, right? What's the greatest speech of all time, right? The most popular and well-known speech of all time, let's say. I don't know if it's the greatest, but it's the most well-known. And it's Martin Luther King. And he started it with what 4 words? Okay. And I ask you, do you know how he started the talk? And I bet you have it in your head right now, or you said it out loud. I have a dream, right? He didn't say I have a step-by-step plan. He goes, I have a dream. When translation, business coach, when you speak to prospects, when you speak to clients, when you speak to JV partners, when you speak to the accountant, when you speak to the business broker, when you speak to the investment banker, when you speak to the banker, when you speak to the potential joint venture partner, do you start with your dream or do you start with your step-by-step plan? Right. And then I would ask you, which one would have more power? Right? Which one would move the needle? Which one would make the boat go faster? Which one would get you more attention? Which one would make you more memorable? Right? And by the way, have you taken time to really sit down and go, comes back to the Mel Fisher and the 3 things, or the 3 core beliefs, the 3 questions. If you really, why are you going to go over the speed bump? When things get bumpy, things get messy for you. And by the way, I'm speaking through you to your coaching clients. When it's hard for the chiropractor, when it's hard for the dentist, when it's hard for the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, what's going to get them over the top? What is their dream? What's the chiropractor's dream about health of his clients and the community and people that he can touch? Right. And it's going to be a whole lot more exciting, I would dare say, or hope. That it's going to be a little more exciting than, cracking backs and making $100 an hour and, netting $200,000 a year. Right. So create that monster vision for yourself. Create a monster vision for your local, as a business coach. Or by the way, don't do anything you don't want to do. Right. But if you think that's a good idea and you understand that North Star and those lofty statements worked out pretty well for Gary Vaynerchuk and Elon Musk, etc. What is that monster vision for yourself? What's your dream for the local? Not for you. You'll always do more for others than you do for yourself. What's your dream? What's your monster vision for the local business community? And how could you go about, speaking that on a regular basis? So anyway, Shades, that's North Star. Starting with, Zuckerberg. Does it help us grow? It made it really easy for what he said yes to and what he said no to. Gary Vaynerchuk. Does it get me attention? It became very easy for what his staff said yes to or no to, right? So anyway, that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
On that sort of same vein, if you will, maybe not so much Zuck, but definitely Gary V. The one I'm going to throw out here is personal brand, but it's one of those. Nice. I think a lot of people don't quite get it in terms of what they, what personal brand really is. So when I say personal brand, what does that mean to you?
Tony Robbins gets paid for who he is, significantly more than what he does. Right? Again, that's personal brand on steroids. That's how do you go about getting, presidents and ex-presidents and movie stars and professional athletes and billionaires to ask you, will you coach me? Right? The answer is personal brand. Elon Musk, without doubt, has got, the love him or hate him, right? But you know exactly who he is. You know exactly what he's working on. And, you probably say, oh, I don't know. You go like an entire day, definitely not a week, if you're following any kind of news or social media without seeing Elon Musk's name attached to something, right? So building a personal brand is what comes to mind. There is a roadmap out there for you to follow. We've talked about it on different podcasts. Like social media has got hundreds of millions of viewers at any one time. A bunch of you got Facebook and you got Instagram and you got LinkedIn and you still have TikTok, which is exciting for some. It's free. And by the way, I don't think fast forward 5 years time, I just don't see that. I think there's going to be a payment gateway. But at the same time, the bottom line is today it is free. And I don't think it's, assume that it's not going to be in 5 years. So now's the time to do it if you want to build your personal brand for free, right? Like in the past, if you wanted to promote yourself, how did you do it? You used newspapers, you used radio, you used TV. Okay, what do those things all have in common? And it rhymes with spending a whole bunch of money and a massive commitment, right? Like I got my career started in advertising and coupon books when I was a teenager, right? You now have 1 million plus people every second of every day available for you to get attention, right? Your eyeballs, a la Gary Vee, your earlobes like this podcast, right? For how much? And the answer is free. And remember, we talked about, I think this last week before, but Mahomes went from rookie unknown quarterback to MVP over Tom Brady, debatably the greatest of all time in one season as a rookie, right? The biggest brands in the world are using social media to build brand, to become the MVP, right? To become big news, to build a personal brand. And by the way, nobody is doing this better. And I can't believe that I'm saying this, but Zuckerberg is doing it big time, right? And it's talking about jiu-jitsu, putting himself up there in a muscle shirt and actually having some muscles. He's surfing with a flag. He's wearing cool watches. He's wearing a gold chain now. He's growing his hair out a little bit, right? All things that are just, if you look at a picture of him 5 years ago and then today, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's the same guy, right? So the ultimate business asset is brand. And I know we live in a world of, marketing, business coaching, and business consulting where, it's direct response. The truth is that the ultimate business asset is brand. And the biggest brands in the world, by the way, are not some of the ones you think of. It's Harvard, it's MIT, it's Stanford, it's educational. They tend to be, standalone, and their margins are absolutely insane. And that's a big part of why they've got the largest brands in the world. Warren Buffett, right? You think of Elon Musk when I say personal brand, or Road Dogg says personal brand. You don't think of Warren Buffett, right? But let me tell you, when Buffett recommends a stock or he sells a bucket load of stock, what happens? Those companies feel it instantly. Why? Because people jump on or jump off, right? What drives that? 2 words: personal brand. That's what's driving that behavior. Like Alex Hormozy in our world, right? I think he's just a gun. He's awesome. He went from unknown to social media superstar in no time flat. And Gary Vee, by the way, did the exact same thing. He went from the wine guy, quote unquote. Some of you, there's a good chance you're listening to this, you know exactly who Gary Vaynerchuk is. You didn't even know that he had the wine, what was it? Wine library TV or something, wine TV, whatever. He was the wine guy. He was taking a sip of wine and then spitting it into a New York Jets hockey helmet, right? And those videos are still out there if you want to check them out. Not that that's relevant. But he went from the wine guy to business guy in record time. How did he do it? He used social media. He built this personal brand. He had a personal brand inside the wine space, and then he built a personal brand inside the business space. And translation, it's worked out pretty well for him. And So as I say, Gary Vaynerchuk and Zuckerberg, maybe, you don't need to do it on that scale and potentially feel intimidated. You can make a dent in the local business community easily using social media effectively. I don't need to do the research in your local community, and I can tell you almost nobody is doing it. Right? Social media superstars, they're not posting once a day. They're taking long form content. Okay. So that's your 2-hour seminar, your 2-hour webinar, right? And then they turn it into 10 to 25 individual posts, right? And by the way, these guys are posting 10 to 100 posts a day. I don't want that to intimidate you. That is not necessary for you. You could start with 1 a day, 2 a day. And no doubt that even might sound a little bit daunting, and I understand, right? But I'll tell you, look, I was that guy. I started my daily email, and I tell you, in my head, I had those limiting beliefs, and I was just like, there is no, like, I'm going to do this for a period of time, and then I am going to exit stage left. I just did not think that I had, I just did not see myself writing a daily email, certainly not with a joke and a PS and an anywho and, in other news, do you know what I mean? Like the framework, if you follow it, you should follow it, by the way. But you know what I mean? I just didn't see that happening in a million years. But you know what? What did I do? I just got started, right? I didn't set a lofty goal and decide to take over the world or anything. I just next action. Okay. Translation for you. You want to, start getting paid for who you are instead of what you do, but you want to do it on a local basis. And you want to become a little bit of a social media superstar in your local community, your local city, in and around your local chamber. Rather than, set up the big giant framework, which by the way, might be a really good idea. It depends upon personality, little red arrow, you are here, what you're looking to achieve. The line between that is the roadmap, but just concentrate on the next action, right? And again, remember, Tony Robbins gets paid for who he is, not what he does. If you want to be able to say the same in the not too distant future, Mahomes overtook Brady. Could you take over, the next best business coach, business consultant, accountant, and, local business guy, quote unquote? And I would dare say, with some moxie, some mojo, some intestinal fortitude, you absolutely could. And by the way, your first video is probably going to suck. Your first emails. When I look back at my original emails, right, it's embarrassing, quite frankly. I mean, if I went back and read them, my God, I probably wouldn't have kept going. But at the end of the day, I had to get it done, and I pressed send. And okay, in finished shoots, personal brand. This feels on topic. Like most people say, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? No doubt you've heard that. That is incorrect, in my opinion, in a meaningful way. What's the anecdote? What's the solution? What's the correct wording? What's true? It's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. Right? So what Grant Cardone would say, and by the way, there's a good chance you hate Grant Cardone, and there's a good chance you love him. Doubtful that you live in the middle. Irrelevant. The man is a billionaire, and to think you couldn't learn something from him, that I couldn't learn something from him, that Grant or Road Dogg couldn't learn something from Grant Cardone would be insane, in my opinion. But what he says, and I think is very on point here for personal brand, your competition is your obscurity. Right? So your competition are people not knowing who you are, right? Think about that. Anyway, so personal brand, Elon Musk is doing it at a pretty high level. I mean, yeah, the guy spent, whatever number of billions of dollars to buy Twitter, so I don't know if that's a fair parallel for anybody listening to this, starting with me. But anyways, personal brand, it's working out pretty damn well for some others. It could work out pretty damn well for you. So that's my answer, Shoots.
Well, and you mentioned the fact of basically just get started. Like your first video is going to suck. You can change. Your brand can evolve over time. And I think, like you said, a perfect example of that is Zuck right now. Like the dude looked like the complete nerd when he started, and now he's like the dude that's going to steal your girlfriend from you. You know what I mean?
He's pretty cool, man. I don't know.
But take a look at Facebook. Now, mind you, a lot of this is politically motivated as well in terms of, paying attention to the political landscape. But all of a sudden, Facebook, who has been accused with the fact checkers and the, all that stuff and shutting down accounts and doing all. So then all of a sudden, Dana White is on his board.
I know.
And they get rid of
smart shoots. It's brilliant move. Brilliant, man. Brilliant. The end.
But like that's what I say. You can your brand can change and evolve over time.
Well, Gary V started in wine, right? I mean, Grant Cardone talked about him. He was in car sales, right? So the answer is absolutely. So let it. And by the way, just accept that it's going to evolve. It's going. You are going to evolve. Your personal brand is going to evolve. You're going to get better. Again, like you just, my daily email might be a good example. Like it's clearly got a framework, right? Like if you read it every day, there's a clear laid out framework that I follow. And by the way, I write every word. I don't, I touched on AI a little bit. Quite frankly, the results were horrific. And then that's not, I just write the thing. And by the way, guess who learns more than anybody, right? I do, right? Because again, it's like a training ground for me. But anyway, so it evolved, right? There was no framework. And then there became a framework because, otherwise I was going to go nuts. And then that framework is also evolved. And by the way, it will evolve again. I have no doubt. So there you go.
There you go. So with that in mind though, do you think that somebody's personal brand is really attached to maybe the kind of the way that they view themselves as well somehow? Like,
yes.
And maybe the way that they view their business?
100%. Look, big thinker. It comes back to, are you willing, like Elon Musk was willing to say, and he believed it, right? Like self-belief, self-esteem is everything, right? And like, he's like, I'm going to colonize Mars. The first time you heard that, it was nothing. There's no way that it wasn't insanity in your opinion, right? And now, after, you know what I mean? I think we can all agree that we're kind of just expecting, it's just a matter of time, right? So, yeah, without doubt. And that's where you got to get those limiting beliefs, and I have a dream making these lofty statements. I'm the one that is going to, increase the level of local business consciousness so that we stop the insanity of having 80% of businesses fail in the first 2 years and 90% disappearing over 5. You know what I mean? Like, you're the one that's going to change the needle. You are the domino that is going to knock over the other dominoes locally. And you'd have to have some moxie in order to be willing to say it. But once you start speaking it, I'm going to say that you're already a little bit closer, right? But don't make a dum-dum of your, you know what I mean? Let's also be, no, I take that back. You know what? Say it. Make it big. Make it, like, if it doesn't make them gasp, like if your goal doesn't make the other person gasp, it's not big enough. And hang on, as I say that, little red arrow, you are here. And then what do I want to achieve? You got 3 kids under the age of 7, might be maybe your time is going to be in 5 years. And now legitimately, a slightly, you know what I mean? I don't know the word for it, non-lofty statement is going to be better, but certainly it should still be lofty, right? So the answer is abso-stinkingly.
Do you think, dude, like at the end of the day, the majority of the people on this planet are not entrepreneurs. They are employees. 100%. So the problem, and I had this conversation with a buddy last week where it's like the level of stress that, like, say you and I, the amount of pressure that we can handle, the average 9-to-5 guy would buckle, right? Like, no doubt. So when you talk lofty goals, then it's so foreign to them. Of course, they're going to think you're crazy.
Yeah, I know. And that's again, if it doesn't make them gasp. In fact, actually, this is David Ogilvy when he's talking about advertising. And he says, you need to have if you're going to create a successful ad, you need to have a big idea. You start with that, right? So like, mine from way back when it was, how would you like to be able to find your high-end coaching fees before starting with your high-end coaching client, right? And obviously we teach that internally, but that was, you know what I mean? When I said that, and it's become, it's been out there for a long time now, so it might not be quite as exciting as it once was, but it's like, Well, who wouldn't want to be able to do that? Right. And I used to say, with the software, we can find any business owner $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. Right. So again, got to make them gasp. Right. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you talk about limiting beliefs. I want to wrap this up here pretty quick, but I just want to say, people are going to have that fear, man. Like, oh man, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to say something and people are going to get offended and you're going to, you're going to piss some people off. Likely, because if you're just vanilla in terms of you're just a vanilla brand, you're not going to stand out, right? What does Dan Kennedy say? If you haven't offended by somebody by noon, you're not marketing hard enough, something like that. Right. I think that there's a lot in there as well. And then, the one thing I want to say about word association, one thing that you said to me once, and it's resonated, and I actually had a bit of a reawakening, I guess, to that, because as we start, you start a new calendar year or you start a new planning process, or you're setting a new budget, or it's all numbers, it's all dollars and cents. And it's like, well, how many clients or how many, customers do I need to serve and have and all that stuff. But you had always said, don't make it about you, make it about them. And what's interesting is, I think a lot of people get hung up on that. It's like, man, I need 10 clients so I can make this X number of dollars so I can have this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. What about I'm going to help 10 business owners make more money?
Yep.
Right? Yeah, $1 million, whatever it is. And guess what? That's naturally going to happen. Do you think that subtle little shift, like how big is that, dude?
Oh, well, okay. So here's what happens, right? So let's say that what you're going to do is you're going to help 10 entrepreneurs crack this. 96% of business owners don't make it to $1 million, right? So that's 4% do, 96% don't. So when you say that, you're going to almost 100% of your local market. You are going to help 10 entrepreneurs in the next 6 months crack $1 million, right? Well, by saying that, just think of Elon Musk, right? When he says he's going to colonize Mars, imagine how much work he's got to do, how much studying he's got to do, how much he needs to understand about Mars and rockets. And, you look at the work that he does, and it's all working towards getting to Mars, right? Okay. So the business coach that makes that lofty statement is all of a sudden going to jack up their training, pay more attention, be more caring. You know what I mean? Like you put yourself in a situation where you got to follow through, right? You just wrote a big check with your mouth that your backside's got to cash. Look, frankly, that's a really, really good thing. Why? Because it's going to up your game. And how did Tom Brady become Tom Brady? How did Mahomes come Mahomes? How does, name the Schumacher become Schumacher? They had to lift their game. Right. So that, and their game isn't on Sunday in front of, millions of people on TV. Their game is on the gym, in the gym from Monday to Saturday pregame. Right. And by that's not, Tom Brady wasn't learning how to throw the ball behind his back. Right. The fundamentals, the same way that, the infielder making $20 million a year fields grounders for hours on end, whilst the professional making $20 million a year. They don't reinvent the wheel. He doesn't decide to be left-handed instead of right-handed, or decide, he's going to catch the ball when his hat's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do something cool. They work on the fundamentals, and that's what business coaches need to do. That's what entrepreneurs need to do. So you up your game, shoots. Big statement means big follow through, means higher level of training, but that's not more training. That means that when you are listening to the podcast, you are listening to the YouTube video, when you are, studying, when you're at the local event, you're going to pay attention at a higher level, as opposed to staring at your dang phone. That's my answer, Shoots. That's what I'd say to that.
There you go. Well, unless you're Mahomes, you just pay off the refs. That works too. So that. Okay. Or you learn to flop. Man, oh man. Anyways, yeah, bring on the hate on Mahomes. Like, I'm probably with 98% of America on that guy. Like, anyways. Before I go down that dirty little tangent, why don't you close us out with their one thing for the week?
I think what we just, similar to that, just create a big vision for yourself similar to, Zuckerberg connecting the world, Elon Musk, and Elon Musk, I mean, I could go on and, it's the robo taxis, it's autonomous vehicles, it's all the statements around that and robotics, et cetera. Create that I have a dream, right? Complete that sentence for yourself. And I think that, you need to create a them. You said something very importantly earlier. You got to create a them goal, not an I goal, right? So it's about, you always do more for others than you will yourself. Create that vision, but don't make that vision about you and your lifestyle. Because again, then you'll give up at the first hurdle, right? Is it worth it? Create a big vision for your local business community, or maybe you want to go national. Maybe you want to go international. Maybe you're a bigger thinker than Road Dogg and I combined, which is awesome. But maybe what you should do is start the same way that Dave Ramsey started locally, Uber started locally, Gary Vaynerchuk started locally. Well, actually, he did start locally with his his parents' liquor store. Grant Cardone started in car sales and, locally, and is now, a billionaire. I have a dream. Finish that statement. Finish that sentence. What is it? I love it. Big,
awesome,
big.
Dude. Well, hey, listen, everybody, thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails that he was just talking about, or you just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching business, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach, as we're trying to make an impact on the coaching community. And while you're at it, please feel free, leave us a review. That is it for another week, folks. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.